there's a difference, right? So I tell people, like, somebody who's always aggressive, right, is always assertive. But someone who's always assertive is not always aggressive, right?
Thank you.
So
Yes.
there's a difference. When you're aggressive, what you're saying could be perceived by others as being sort of rude, antagonistic. But assertive is, it's where you're saying that I'm holding my ground here, that I'm not going to give up my perspective, because it could be for a number of reasons, because of the power dynamics that are going in the room, the privilege dynamics that are going on in the room. So I think it's important, and you're right, these are skills that can be taught to people. So I do a workshop on how to have difficult conversations, and I really break that distinction down about being assertive and aggressive and passive, right? So a lot of people are too passive. So I kind of walk them through the spectrum and to say, there are different situations and different times when you use certain sort of strategies. But going back to your other question of, how did I learn to use my words, so using I statements. But also another thing that I started doing is I got very comfortable. Like I said, I faked it till I made it, but at letting people know in a very respectful way that I wasn't going to tolerate certain behaviors. So I got very comfortable at doing that. So, and I teach my son that now, if somebody's bullying me right now, to say, I am not comfortable with you name calling me, or you treating me in that way. And if that happens again, and I'm very clear with stating a consequence, if that happens again, I will report your behavior. I have said that so many times in my life, and that's just my limits. Those are my boundaries, and I have no shame. And if somebody just chooses to not respect my boundaries, then we need to re-examine and reevaluate that relationship, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's a work, because I never say that unless there's going to be the consequence that follows. And when I say there is a consequence, then that consequence will follow. I use that as a very sort of firm way of letting somebody know that, we all have different boundaries. We have different experiences. What we're willing to tolerate is different from one person to the next.
Absolutely.
But we have to be able to respectfully communicate our sort of what we're willing to tolerate, so that people know. We can't assume, what Joyce is willing to tolerate may be very different because of what you've gone through and what you've lived through versus what I've gone through. For example, for me, this is a conversation I just recently had with a leader that I'm working with, is that my sort of sticking point is that every single person needs to be treated with dignity and respect, like regardless of anything. Like, I don't care how busy we are. I don't care how big we are. It doesn't matter. Every single person that comes into contact with our organization needs to be left feeling like they were treated with dignity and respect, because I don't feel comfortable asking people to give me something or to share their value with me if at a very minimum, I can't even give that back to people, right? So that's a philosophy that I started, a long time ago as a way of me using my words. And I find that when you let people know very clearly, directly, and respectfully, most people will respect your boundaries. Most people will. And the ones that don't, then you need to escalate that situation. And then there's different strategies and how you might deal with that individual too.